Okay, and we're back for another episode after a long break. It's me, Kozai here, and I'm with Gary once again. What's up, Gary?
He's with me. It's been a long while, hasn't it? How's 2020 treating you?
Um, Busy, but better than most people, from what I can see. how, how about you?
Yeah. It's definitely a strange year. It's good to be back. So I guess we're talking about quote unquote version 7. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's finally out, and honestly, I'm looking at this, and the notice board post by Kenshin here, it only seems to have 4 changes on it, but we'll see if that's actually true.
Yeah, I think we actually have it talking about is this actually version 7 later
Yeah.
on, but I think what we're going to start is with the stats, right? We're going to start with the stat changes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, losing my
So,
voice.
everyone can do the crab rave now because health is gone. I think that's the biggest one here. Like people don't have durability anymore, which I don't know about you, but I personally am a huge fan of. Like, I don't remember any time in the show, at any rate, where people were tanking stuff without the use of a technique, right?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that sounds about right. And honestly, in any like fights on the site, I've never seen health become like a major factor. It's normally if you're hit, you're probably dead anyway. And like, I suppose even if it was, they're very like niche builds. Like maybe, actually, I guess Yoka used DR. I don't know if anyone actually used outright health.
Um, I mean, I used health in V5, but that doesn't
Oh,
count.
that was ages ago.
Yeah. Man, that must have been, what, like 6, 7 years ago now.
It's
Time sure
scary,
flies.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very scary. Um, but yeah, I think getting rid of health is a good call. Mostly because it was kind of a non-factor in those things. Um,
Yeah. And okay, so here's what I was thinking about, right? Isn't there a technique called a simulation creation technique? The one where you
uh-huh.
touch something and you turn into that material, like
Yeah,
metal.
yeah, yeah. I think
So like,
I asked them all that.
how would you register that now?
Not sure. Um,
Or hell, like Earth Spear. How would you make Earth Spear now? I think
this is
maybe.
why I think, and I know we'll talk about this later. I think there are a lot of questions that don't have answers at the moment, or rather require a staff ruling or kind of guidelines. I don't think those were laid out perhaps as well as they could have been. I think there are a lot of questions open about this version 7,
Right.
but we'll kind of talk about those as we go on.
Now that I'm actually thinking about it, I mean, if I were to be the change that I wanted to see on the site, which I would encourage everyone out there to try and do, um, text like Earthspear and assimilation all creation technique wouldn't, like, I think you would just assign them a power stat, right? And then whenever you cast it, you gain a jutsu health equal to that power stat. Maybe?
Maybe it would still be kind of strange because like, is jutsu health still a thing? I don't know.
Jutsu health and object healths are still things for sure.
Mm, interesting. I
Yes.
don't know. It's bizarre because, and I'm jumping ahead a bit here. Strength, we see like what strength, like 25 health, 25 strength. If you punch someone, you'll get deeply bruised injuries or cracked bones. However, you don't see the same for like random AOE chakra attacks that have like 5 power. So does that mean you're getting killed by a 5 power chakra attack if you're hit by it, or 5 power? Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I don't know why they started the scaling at 25. That's also very strange to me.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, but
Um,
they have guidelines for
I think there
health
are a lot of
stats,
questions.
huh?
Hmm. I think in general there are a lot of questions that still need answering. But
Yeah.
let's kind of continue on through the actual stats because we have a new one. We have vigor.
Yeah, we
It's
have vigor. This
an
is
interesting stat.
Yeah, this is the big cheese, the big discussion stat right now. So basically, here's how I
Hmm.
see it. They took a bit off of chakra, off of what chakra was in V6, and they sort of spliced it onto stamina, and they just renamed it as vigor. So this is the stat that determines how much AP you have, right? It works the same as before, where it's 10 AP per 1 point of vigor, but it also now acts the same way that chakra used to for some specs, where it determines your scaling, it determines what rank of tech you can cast. So this is a heavy stat, don't you think?
I think it's pretty big, especially when you put anything, you make a on there as being, hey, you got to have this stat to use ninjutsu, and everyone loves ninjutsu, so you're going to see people running this probably fairly heavily.
Yeah, I think if you keep player behavior and like popular spec combinations out of this, vigor becomes less bad. But I mean, we'll get to that when we go over specs. But I think right off the bat, AP right now is really valuable. So if you combine like chief scaling for things like, ninjutsu with AP, right? That's kind of that's a lot on the stat.
Oh, definitely.
If you remember back before reaction time was removed, speed had a significant amount of weight because it affected something other than movement, right? It had more than one perk to it, and that's what's happening to vigor right now. Is that it has two really really important aspects, and if we scroll down to chakra here, if you look at chakra only has one thing to it, and it fulfills the same niche. It fills the same niche as vigor, right?
I mean, yeah, but look at how they massacred my boy. It's disgusting. I don't think chakra's all that good.
Yeah, chakra. Like the only reason to have 70 chakra is to fulfill like a requirement or to get scaling on a very specific thing. Like for example, if you were to do puppetry, I'm not even sure if you would take more than 70 because I'm not sure how puppetry scales or anything, right?
I'm not sure myself, actually. I can't say I've done puppetry in a while. And as you well know, I've been away from the site for a while as well.
True. We'd have to ask Max or something if he's still around. But yeah, I mean, if puppetry mechanics scale with chakra, then I think puppetry is actually insanely good now. But oh man, I mean, chakra is literally just like a third of vigor or half of vigor. It's just vigor but worse.
I think it'll be interesting to see how the meta evolves around chakra, just because if people start deprioritizing it, it actually makes genjutsu almost viable. Just because people have such low stats that you can kind of target out with it.
Yeah, so the chakra specs that don't scale with vigor, the ones that scale with chakra mainly, are genjutsu, sensory, space-time, and puppetry. I find it interesting that space-time is on here.
I feel like it makes sense, honestly, from a balance perspective. If you put space-time up in vigor, and like maybe genjutsu down in chakra, vigor would everyone will just be stacking vigor. Everyone loves space-time. And I think being able to break those two out into different stats might disrupt people's build paths just a bit, or at least kind of disrupt the meta around what people are building.
Maybe a little bit, but I'm not sure it matters as much as you think it does. Do you know how multi-spec jutsu work?
Are you still there?
Yeah, do you know how like the multi-spec techs, like if you have a technique that is both ninjutsu and chakra?
I can't say that I know. No, please explain.
Okay, so if I say like here's a good example. Ash, she had a technique called the Fear, which was ninjutsu main, genjutsu as well. But because he lists, say for example, if he lists ninjutsu as the first spec on his jutsu, right? It will scale as if it were a ninjutsu, and it gains benefits from other boosting stuff as if it were a ninjutsu. So this means that nowadays, If he was to list Genjutsu first, it would scale with Chakra. But if he were to list Ninjutsu as the first spec on the tech, it would scale with Vigor instead. So if people want to app their customs this way, all they have to do is add mechanics or aesthetics or whatever to justify their technique having more than one spec, and just have it scale off of Vigor instead.
Mm. Interesting. That seems kind of loopholey to me, and I would hope that would be somehow closed.
I mean, I did ask like 2 mods if it still worked this way, and they said that it did. So we'll see.
Interesting. And I think that goes back to like the clarity of how everything works. Just because I don't think in general you should have to go and ask staff, "Hey, this is how scaling works with this new system you made for us."
Yeah, I think it should have been more clearly stated, but at the same time, they didn't really give us any big reason to believe that it had been changed. Like, they didn't mention it at all. So, I don't know. Okay, what do you think about speed?
Speed, all right, I guarantee people still run 100 speed, because that's what everyone does. Everyone loves speed. But it doesn't seem as important to me. Maybe as it once did. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, the reason that is because reaction time is gone. You don't like you can react to everything now, and they're keeping it really vague here to prevent the, and I quote, system breaks and arguments associated with meters per second based speed systems. And the problem that I find with this is that due to player behavior and the vagueness of how speed works, like, you're only going to get 2 outcomes from when somebody attacks someone else. Either it's going to hit and they're going to die because they're going to hit where they want to hit, which is usually the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're just going to dodge entirely and it's not going to hit them. There aren't going to be any, like, normal flesh wounds. No one's going to hit you in the side or the arm or the hand or the leg. It's going to be lethal or it's going to miss.
The spike has always been a very binary combat system. It's either you're dead or you're alive. There's no. I've barely seen people take wounds in actual serious combat. So it seems like speed is be better.
I know at one point in I think it was early to mid V6. I think maybe it was that way afterwards, but I don't recall. The way that Viper had it set up was that if it was within the top 10 range of your RT, you couldn't really justify dodging it entirely. You were going to get grazed by it. And I liked that a lot because, it necessitated things like, regeneration or stuff like that. And it actually encouraged people to use projectile attacks instead of just AoEs all the time, like they do now.
AoEs are an interesting concept that I think. I feel like this is a total sidebar, but I feel like if you're using some like crazy AoE attack, you should be paying a bit more AP. But maybe that's just me.
I think where you should pay is not in AP, but in range, right? Your range should be a lot lower, but or at least raise the range of projectile attacks, or give them some perk to let them keep up with AoEs. Because I've asked the mods about this before, and I can't remember whether it was this administration or Sean's, but I remember a mod basically telling me that, no, we're not making any adjustments. Projectiles don't need to be as good as AoEs. And I'm like, really? Are you sure?
Why would you bother having it projectile? That doesn't make sense.
I think I've seen a technique by a certain moderator. I won't name names, but in the past it's been like, he creates these sort of beams or slashes, right? And those aren't AoEs at all, but you were able to launch more than one of them per jutsu use, and I thought that was a really interesting idea, right? Like, what if you were able to launch several fireballs or several bolts or something per use of the technique?
Absolutely, and I think there are a few techniques that have that. I know it's been a while since I've actually looked at certain techniques, but I know it's like Phoenix Fire or something. You could launch like 6 or 7 fireballs out. Obviously, it wasn't nearly as large as the Great Fireball or whatever.
But I mean, like,
give you more.
you have like 4 charges of a technique per cast, for example,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
So like just to kind of carry on with the example, you cast this jutsu, you do the hand signs, you'd have these charges for a set period of time, and you can use them over the course of that posting window. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, gotcha. I think that'd be interesting. I feel like a lot of times, certain people will push the envelope on certain things, and at the same time, other people won't realize that they can actually have that available to them. So it'd be interesting to see if that's more standardized going forward.
Absolutely. Okay, but I guess for speed in general, I'd like to see something that allows for injury, because it's very binary at the moment, and I'm not sure that's great for the site.
Absolutely. All right, we're up to strength.
Yeah, strength.
I
Okay.
know you have some thoughts.
Yeah. So the way that people thought that strength worked, and this is something that I was illuminated on by Kenshin a few days ago. But the way people thought that strength worked was that, physical stuff like slashes or range slashes or punches or range punches or the like can't interact with like healthless chakra stuff like fireballs in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is strictly incorrect. If you use a maneuver, then that means that taijutsu stuff and weaponry stuff, and I think arguably puppetry stuff. We'll talk about puppetry in a bit, but can like Tai and Wep can now interact with jutsu. So the example that Kenshin gave would be like an LRA punch. You could now punch a fireball with a fist cloaked in LRA, and I think that we've seen some range maneuvers before. Ones that I've made, ones that some of the mods have made, that could now just like blow away jutsu. And I think I used to complain about this meta back in the day, but if some balancing tweaks come down, and again we'll talk about this in a bit here. If some balancing tweaks come down, this could be as good as Vigor, I think, even though it really has only one role. Because I mean, range maneuvers are incredibly good. You can cap out or at least get very high numbers very easily using the physical specs.
Absolutely, and some interesting things. Like I'm kind of interested by these craters that are being created when you're punching something. These are pretty large.
Oh yeah. I wonder if you can justify like having those be sound waves now, right? we have the other stat calculations. Are there any significant changes here?
I didn't read these super closely. Let's take a look at that. Yes, light speed being regular speed stat. Who actually jumps though? It's not important. The distance.
I don't think there are any changes.
Yeah.
There is some clarification on impact force. So before, the way we thought impact force worked was if you were to attack something with that was blunt, right? You would add the impact force onto the power of the attack, but that is not the case. It's just impact force now.
Yep. I think that was a well-needed clarification.
Right. Yeah,
because I think at one point we were trying to break the system with using impact force plus strength and just smashing people.
Yes, I clearly remember that. I wrote a post about that. It's still somewhere out there on the site. This means that blunt weapon builds have to have speed, which I mean I guess is true for weaponry in general. But if you want it to be good, the speed has to be higher, like a lot higher than it used to be.
Absolutely.
And they have guidelines for health, and these are interesting.
I personally found the armor. I know like they changed the armor thing last patch. Or I was reading the patch notes, but I don't know if you talked about it more recently, but this armor change where it's physical armor is better against physical attacks, and chakra armor is better against chakra attacks, and they're weaker against their opposites, which I always found interesting. Not a change in this patch, but nonetheless interesting to me coming back after a while.
I think it's just fine. Like, it doesn't really make a difference.
Oh yeah, no, I just think it's a good change that they made
Yeah,
when they did that.
adds a little
Back
more
in
variety
yeah.
to a site that now needs a lot more variety.
Oh.
There is a sort of a jutsu versus jutsu clash thing here, where or like chakra based techs have more of a resistance against physical attacks than otherwise,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I guess this sort of necessitates having like debuff, because now that people don't have health anymore, everyone is going to be wanting to run some kind of like defensive tech, right?
I would hope so. I'd hope so. If you're not running that, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Unless you're running weaponry.
True enough. True enough.
Yeah. Because I mean, like we've seen people like Hanabi who have these insane armors, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, these most of these things won't work against stat checks, because I think most stat checks just automatically succeed now.
I'm not sure. I can't. Once again, I haven't been back for very long, so I haven't
Yeah.
seen any recent rulings on it or it in play.
One thing that I would ask the mods about for sure is like kill effects, because for the most part they used to run against health, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so how would they work now?
These are all good questions that are still open. Probably need
Yeah,
to be answered
big true.
before we're actually running into combat.
And then we have jutsu rules, which are I think mostly the same, and I think here it's worth mentioning booster AP. So part of the reason that I think Vigor is so heavily weighted is that at the moment boosters cost 200 to activate and 100 to maintain, right?
I assume this is for S ranks only, right?
Yeah, for S ranks, which are the ones
Yeah.
that matter.
Okay. Okay.
And I think for A ranks it's just 100 to activate, 50 to upkeep, right?
Whew, that is costly.
Yeah, it's a lot more than it was before. For reference, S ranks were 50 to activate and only 25 to upkeep before for most of the techniques. And I think this is what gives me some concern about Vigor, because the the common mod conception from what I've seen, the common mod belief is that Vigor begins to lose value after 35 points in it, which I think is incorrect. At 35, you only have 700, so you're losing almost half of your AP in 2 posts of boosting. And on top of
Hmm.
that, since you are a chakra build, you're going to need to have your debuffs, your amplifiers, stuff like that, your actual attacks itself, and your defensive, because you need a defensive now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're basically going to be running through a whole bunch of AP real damn fast, and if you don't have your vigor stat up, you're going to run into a bit of a pickle real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I know many people who are running full vigor now, even though they wouldn't have before at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
Unfortunate, but we'll see, because they've given us Kenshin's given me reason to believe that they're going to revert the booster costs back to what they were before, so 50-25.
Hmm.
And I think that takes a lot of weight off of vigor. What do you think?
I obviously it will because everyone runs boosters, and I think that does bring us a little closer to parity with other stats.
Except chakra.
Except chakra. Chakra's yeah. Um, I still think it'll be a pretty strong stat, honestly, because people like to burn through AP pretty quickly.
I guess.
Just to bring it back, because I don't think we touched on it when I skipped over it just a bit. But what were your thoughts on the character stat cap going to 250 now?
Personally, I think it's a little low. People weren't running huge amounts of health anyway. Except Kenshin at one point I know did. I know Stein loved his high health. I personally, I have a very low opinion of tank builds, but it's neither the time nor the place. I would have dropped it to 275 or something like that. But I mean 250. It's whatever. The number doesn't matter. We'll adapt.
I actually find it super interesting just because they also upped the starting stats of certain ranks.
So now it's easier to hit cap, right?
Yeah, it's much easier to hit cap. And I wonder if this will encourage people to be a bit more reckless with their characters, because you'll be able to jump back in and be able to have a full stat character in 15,000 words ish if you start at any level. You start with 100, and it's 100 words per stat point. So it'd be like 15,000 words, and you're back to
back when I was still a new gen in early V6, it was like 53,000 to hit cap from base.
It was disgusting.
Very very painful. I mean, I see this as a good change.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it will actually see people taking more risks because of this, because they won't lose the words that were just making your character actually be able to fight someone.
Like I think weapons are more expensive now, and I mean you're still losing out on the jutsu. I mean, maybe that's just me. I'm pretty conservative with these kinds of things. But yeah, we'll see.
Shall we move to specialties?
Let me see if I'm missing anything first. Mastery. This is important. Masteries have 4 different kinds of masteries, or I guess 3 plus half of one. And we've always had power, speed, health increases. We've always had hand seal reductions, but AP reduction here makes its return. And for the past, what is it now, 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, the staff have been prior to this administration, have been pretty heavily set against AP reduction. And I'm beginning to wonder whether this effect will begin to make a comeback.
I feel like it must, especially if in theory people start moving away from vigor, which I don't think they will. They're going to want to make their techniques, their signature techniques, their kill techniques more efficient. You want to be paying less to kill people, right? And hopefully be able to spam it eventually. So I think AP reduction I think it's pretty strong, personally. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, did it used to remove all hand seals, and not just half of them, or was this a?
It did used to remove all hand seals, but now it no longer does. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad. All it means is that your hands have to be unoccupied. Like we're basically playing Pathfinder or something now, right? Your hands have to be unoccupied, and they have to be doing something with the hand seals. But I mean, unless you're willing to spend 2 whole mastery slots on it, which I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, I suppose it might be interesting if you have like a particular technique that works super well. If you can,
of course,
erase your hand seals, then it's great. But I think AP reduction is probably going to be the smart play here. Probably 8 times out of 10
for most techs, right?
Yeah.
It is worth to note that if the technique only has 1 hand seal, you only need 1 mastery to get it to 0. So techniques like
Genjutsu release?
I think Genjutsu release. I think the shadow techs as well. I think the big shark bomb tech only has 1 hand seal, which is great. Like AP reduction, I like it because I like anything that interacts with numbers, you know me.
Of course, dude. Numbers are your thing.
But it can be a little concerning because I do remember the last person who sort of who played around with AP reduction. I won't name a name, but everyone knows who she is. The last person who fooled around with AP reduction was basically the person who got it like completely removed from everything. And I hope the staff managed to control this well, because people who actually try to do the math can abuse this very easily.
And not many people do math, because in case you haven't noticed, people aren't mathematically oriented often.
I mean, it's like basic stuff. Anyways, there is a small change down below. Elemental advantage has been changed from a magnitude of 20 to 25.
Huge change, massive, game breaking.
Well, I mean, it does. I mean, it's important, right? 25 is actually quite big.
I don't know. We'll see if it actually matters. It was at 20 before, and it goes up by 5, right? That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that makes a whole lot of difference.
25 is the threshold for a physical thing overcoming a chakra thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people who now take like chakra infusion or stuff like that, I don't think that counts as a chakra based attack or a jutsu. You're just pumping up your weapon with chakra. Any mods out there are free to correct me if I'm wrong here, by the way. But if that doesn't count, then this does become important. Same for like defenses, I guess.
And collaborations. Are collaborations new? I don't recall.
Collaborations, so the way it used to work was you just train with another person and the technique was slotless. But now it's more codified, and I'd argue that it is now better.
That being said, I don't think people will take advantage of it.
Okay. Hey, everyone out there on NRPG, if you do not take advantage of this, then you are trolling. You're nerfing yourself. Take advantage of collaboration techniques. Look right here.
Prove me wrong.
You are literally getting a plus 50 power and speed. It's rather odd, mods, that you did not include health in this equation. Why wouldn't a collaboration technique gain health? But you know what? It's whatever. You're gaining 50 power and speed on a technique. And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be ninjutsu, This could be a taijutsu that you're gaining an additional 50 power and speed on. Imagine that, right?
That being said, I don't think people. Personally, I've found that when people actually try and like fight as a group or together, they end up tripping over each other. So even if they make this amazing collaboration jutsu, they have to be really, I guess, in sync in how they're writing. Otherwise, they'll end up kind of screwing each other over.
Gary, I want you to read the last line.
Last line. Collaboration techniques can only be formed with other characters, other fantasies, clones. Ooh. Interesting. Do clones and summons and NPC. It's son. That's fucking busted.
so you don't really need someone else who can sort of, screw up your plan via poor RP. You can do this all, quote unquote, on your own. Just summon something and do your collab with that.
Okay. I take back what I said previously. This is abusable. And
I don't know if it's abusable. It seems like it's intended. They have those examples there for us.
Yeah, it just seems very, very strong. Maybe, like, sure, I understand, like, maybe plus 50 seems like a lot. Maybe if you're like plus 25, but 50 seems like a lot.
I think that the increase of power should scale with rank instead of being a flat plus 50. Because let's face it, you could do like a D rank or an E rank collaboration, and suddenly it gains plus 50 power. That's way like that. That's far more efficient than having an S rank that gains plus 50 power, right?
Absolutely. And gain power speed. They should correct their equation here. Fix the parentheses.
Yeah.
Makes it very confusing.
Yeah, that's. Oh, you know what? That's actually true. Their equation makes it so that only one of the techniques is divided by 2, as opposed to the average. I mean, they literally say it's equal to the average of the techniques used to form them plus 50, like right before it. But
yeah, like, it makes sense what you're saying, but
yeah,
some people like to nitpick, myself obviously included.
of course. I'm sure we've all done that at some point. Okay, so moving on to the specs here. Man, all the specs have a secondary stat now. Ain't that something?
Yeah, it's definitely something. I don't know if it's a good something, but it is something.
Okay, so how many of these? So people normally take 3 specs, and they try to take full advantage of the 3 specs, right? Do you think that it is unreasonable to say that if you take full advantage of only 2 specs, that you're nerfing yourself?
Let's see. Relative to 3, or
yeah, relative to 3.
Well, yeah. If you're only taking advantage of 2 when you could be taking advantage of 3, then you're kind of dumb.
Okay.
Honestly, I haven't looked at the specialty page all that much. I can't say I have a super strong opinion. I think it is kind of limiting. Just because to optimize a build, you need to you need to stack the same stat. Like I want to go ninjutsu, I got to stack vigor, and then I would kind of be prompted to also start going with funjutsu and
like you're incentivized to pick other stuff.
I think you're strongly incentivized to do so.
Yeah, and I think this, and I feel strongly about this because I did talk about this with Kenshin, but I know his justification for why he thinks he's right, but I'm gonna go and say it right now. This discourages build variety because if once you pick the spec that you want for your character, the other specs just sort of fall in line, unless you want to do that whole multi-spec thing that we mentioned earlier, where you have everything scale off of one spec, and I think that also, to a certain extent, decreases build variety.
Absolutely. And I know one thing I found interesting, and I don't know if this is new or if this was added this patch, the idea of a clan specialty. Is that new?
That is not new as of this patch, new as of the last couple of patches, maybe.
Gotcha.
I like it. I like it a lot. I know you might feel differently.
I actually like what it means to me. If you start as a genin, you shouldn't pick the specialty of your clan because you can't get an S rank. You should pick a different spec, and then and once you get to a C rank or B rank, pick up the specialty of your clan later on. Just because you can start using a greater variety of techniques around it.
I mean, ranking up is not hard, dude.
I mean, who knows?
But I mean, speaking from an endgame perspective, I think both options are equally valid. Having an extra S rank is pretty good, but having access to A and below of certain stuff like seals or taijutsu are interesting. I think the worst clan spec is weaponry, because if you don't pick it as your primary, then it's basically useless, right? Because you don't get any of the perks if you pick it as a secondary, right?
I suppose so, yeah. Well, do they have primary and secondary and tertiary text here? I don't know. Because I know at one point that your main specialty was supposed to be the one you were best at, but okay, actually I read it. I'm reading here main spec.
Oh god, no. Okay. Yeah, you're thinking of the wrong side, Gary.
yeah.
So how many of these specs have involve vigor at all?
How many of them? Let's see.
I think it's all of them except 3, which means that if you do the math, right, if you combo them up, there is only one combination of specs that does not require vigor in some way.
That is correct.
Yeah, Tai, Wep, Puppetry. That's the only combination that does not absolutely require vigor to be at 35, at least.
Once again, contributes to vigor being an important stat that I'm sure people will love to stack.
Yeah, and I mean, I asked the mods about this again, and I think Kenshin was like, well, it's sort of unavoidable, because because every other stat has to scale off of something chakra related, right? And to an extent, I sort of agree with him, but I think there was one point here that I sort of don't like, and that's that sensory is now a new spec. It's a spec all of its own.
I feel like sensory was and should be just kind of like a sub-spec. Like it makes much more sense to make it be a sub-spec.
I mean, sub-specs are basically non-specs. They don't do anything at all. I think it should have been a special tech, right?
I don't know if it should be a special technique, but I think a sub-spec, in my opinion, is, and it looks like it says here, it can fall under multiple categories. Like you could have a sensory space-time, you could have a sensory ninjutsu, you could have a sensory, I don't know, you could have sensory medical or something like that. But now you can't have that.
I mean, technically you still can. If you want sensory to scale off of vigor primary, you just make a ninjutsu sensory. Oh man. Jesus Christ. I don't like this at all. I don't think sensory should be a spec. There's just not enough there to qualify it as a spec, in my opinion. And if you took it out, it would balance things ever so slightly more, back towards vigor having a normal stat weight. It is worth noting here that space-time has received some changes.
Read those over real quick.
Okay. For those of you who are not familiar with the way space-time worked before, intangibility was its own thing. Intangibility, kind of like Toby's phasing in the series. Hashtag no spoilers, by the way. But now it is linked to a dimension, which, I mean, is that really is that a spoiler? Like, is there a spoiler in our rules now? But on a more serious note, I have talked to someone in the player base who thinks this is a good change. I sort of disagree. They're basing this decision on one data point in canon.
Also, honestly, our site is nowhere near canon. Let's be real. So I think it makes very little sense for a lot of our rulings.
The way they justified it was that space-time is capable of, and I quote, other shenanigans, and that phasing should be more exclusive.
I don't know. It seems kind of bizarre that you'd have to have dimension to phase. I don't know. Maybe that's.
I mean, again, the only example of it in canon is dimension related, but I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem right to me. We'll see if other stuff turns up in the future, as I have no doubt it will. There's some pretty crazy stuff happening in canon at the moment. We'll see.
Mythical summons now with space time.
Mythical summons have been back for a while. So again,
yeah, I'm an NRPG boomer apparently.
Yeah, she who shall not be named can have her fairy summons back. But I mean, if you guys want your dragons and your whatevers, you can have them now. Even though I don't really think it'll make a difference. As far as I can tell, summons are fairly standardized.
Yeah, I think that's our last one that we can talk about. But I think we're still going to talk about special techniques next, right?
Well, hold on. It is worth noting that Spacetime now does have invasion techniques. Like these are now codified and quantified. Yes. So dimension users who took dimensions solely to have intangibility, watch out. People can now gank you in your dimension. I think there are a couple of technicalities that I wanted to go over here, but let's see. For Fuin, I think it does say that if you don't have Fuin, you can't interact with seals much. Which rules as written kind of screws over people who take it as a clan spec, but it's whatever.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, outside of that, I think we're good. There are the subspecs. It does say that that staff will take a more controlled approach on auras and fields. Again, very vague wording. We don't get like any solid rules here, which is something that I would have liked.
I mean, at the same time, though, that's kind of. I feel like it's smart almost when you start a patch. You don't. Sure, you want to have certain rules set in stone, but also you want to see how it evolves and be able to react to it appropriately.
Yeah, but we've seen how auras and fields have behaved throughout all of the latter half of V6, and I feel like they could have had one or two solid things here, like range limits in particular for auras and fields.
Just like list out like ranges based on rank or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. So let me check to see if there's anything I've missed. Okay. Moving on to special techniques. We have all this stuff here. Do we have any changes?
Well, I guess we touched on it, but dimension techniques. This is where they outline the invasions and all that stuff and how that will work.
Yeah.
Living clone seems the same.
It's looking down at the most important one, which is technique amplifiers.
Oh, and probably debuffs.
Yeah, debuffs and amplifiers have AP costs equal to the amount of power that they add, and that these increase it at a flat number. So instead of being an S rank cost of 50, as would be traditional for a technique of this rank, it is an S rank cost of 70, and I think that is significant.
It is significant, but Kozai, here's a question for you. What stat gives you AP?
Vigor.
And if you want to boost up your jutsu power, what are you going to stack? You're going to stack vigor.
Vigor, right?
It's almost like makes vigor even better.
Okay, so when I was first sort of verbally sparring with Kenshin over this, he was like, "Oh, Kozai, you're being kind of closed-minded. You know, technique debuffs exist, which means that vigor won't be the main stat." I'm like, but to pay for the debuff, you need vigor, and
you need vigor. Yeah, it's this virtuous cycle.
Yeah, like if you're going to increase the cost of amplifiers and stuff like that, amplifiers and I assume debuffs. Oh, that's interesting. I don't think that the debuff AP cost has to be equal to the amount spent. I wonder. It says that techniques of this nature can only possess the lowest power for their ranks, which I assume means that it can't be it can't scale, right? And it can't be
so.
It can't be chakra equal to power is what I think they're restricting there. But can debuffs be amplified?
This is some Inception shit. We're gonna go amplify your debuffs. I mean, it's an open question.
Because here's the thing, right? You have so let's make a hypothetical. We'll try and go through this as quickly as you can. So player A is a full vigor build, and they have their defensive up, right? Player B, who wants to have fun and build whatever they want, a non-meta build, if you will, with lower vigor, tries to launch an attack at player A, and because they have lower vigor, right, player A will most likely out-sustain player B because they're able to keep their defensive up for longer. Player A has to both amplify their attack and apply a debuff, which means they have to spend more AP out of their lower AP pool because they have lower vigor, right? I mean, I don't know if this is making sense to our audience, and if it doesn't, people can just ask me, hit me up in Discord, and I'll show them the math on text. But I think that this places a lot of weight on vigor that it shouldn't have as much of.
It seems our big takeaway so far is 100 vigor or bust.
Yeah, 100 vigor or bust, or at least like If you're running that non-meta build, you still need around 50 of it. I think personally, maybe 40 or 50. Like
Well, yeah,
that.
if you might keep up with everyone else, definitely.
It's a very V6 reminiscent build. I think that would be of web type puppetry. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess we'll talk about this in a bit later, but I think V6 did more for build variety than V7 has.
I so far would agree with you. Like, I haven't seen anything that would indicate a shift towards build variety. Or normally, when you're looking at a patch, you can kind of tell why this change was made or how it was made and for what reasons. And in this case, we don't have those reasons.
Right. It is worth noting that they have definitions for all of these, for most of all of these special texts so far. In particular, for curse marks. So I think from now on, any seal that enhances, that acts as a permanent slotless enhancer, has to be a curse mark by definition. Is that what you're getting off of this read as well?
Let me take a look. Reducing their abilities.
Because that's what I'm getting here.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. No more non-special tech like permanent
like
boosters.
you don't have a Kunjutsu thing just on your shoulder, and you're like, oh, I'm going.
Yeah, like I'm ready. I don't need to have the consequences or the restrictions of a curse mark, but now you do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good. Yeah, having it be more codified is good. It is worth noting that I think you can have a summon place a curse mark on you.
Summons have always been an interesting, or like not interesting. I suppose an underused aspect of the site, and
yeah, I think in the past couple of years, people have sort of, seen the light as far as summons. They've realized just how good they are.
Yeah,
whereas many of us NRPG boomers have sort of realized that ever since they got buffed way back when. Free jutsu, why? Thank you.
Free jutsu, massive stat pool. What's not to like?
Speaking of summons. Guess what's next? They changed summons a little bit. They changed summon word count to be the same as jutsu word count. And if you guys didn't know before this, both summons and jutsus cost a butt ton of words to train. But now it's all normalized again. It used to be that C ranks cost 2,000, B ranks 3,000, A 4,000, and S is like 5,000. But now they're all down, which is good. The word count before was quite painful. I think you will agree.
I mean, personally, I don't really care about word count, but it's whatever. I suppose it's fine that it's lower. It doesn't really matter.
You know what I hate about this? That summons require vigor. I don't know why this is. Why do summons require vigor? Why isn't it chakra? I don't understand. Like you have space-time scales off of chakra primarily. So why don't summons scale off of chakra?
Because vigor is the master stat, man.
It just doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like you even say that summons are space-time related. Space-time scales off of chakra. Why are summons related to vigor?
Let's just chalk this one up to another reason to max out vigor.
Yeah, big true. Ha ha ha. Oh man. It's worth noting that summons do still require hand seals. 5 of them to be precise. I don't know if this can be reduced by skills, because you can master jutsu and they'll reduce hand seals. I'm not sure if that's worth it. I guess it's just sort of a side point. Summons can be killed. I think most of these rules are still the same, right?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any major, like in these lists of changes here, I'm not seeing anything.
All races must be registered initially with the following template. Is there a template anywhere here?
I'm sure it'll be coming out very soon. It's following.
I don't think there's a template here. Oh man, ain't that something?
Awkward.
Do you know if the summon template has been changed to reflect the new stats yet?
Let's find out.
Okay, so here are the stats for the summons. 300 for an S rank. That's more. That's about the same number of stats that you would expect, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Also, there's like no template. That's cool.
Okay, so no template yet. All right. Well, I guess we'll wait for them to put it up.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing, right? Like back in the day, you would have Yusei like as like the boss. He would make sure that all this like that every mod, whether trial or not, went over the changes and at least talked about them, put their input in, and make sure everything was solid before release, making sure that all the templates and all the revamps were done. Now it's just like they put out the patch and they sort of like wing it from there.
Yeah.
I can understand wanting to get it out quickly, but I don't think anyone was like urgently asking for this, right?
My understanding is that actually they closed the creation center prior to this release. Is that correct?
They closed it a while before this, and
Okay.
it was for separate reasons, right? Like they were very clearly overwhelmed, and I think to a small extent they still are with creations. Certain people were because for whatever reason they had changed it to where you could make 3 apps at a time, and I think that was a huge mistake.
That's asking for trouble.
Yeah, I toward the end there, I wasn't even using all three of my apps. I was only making like 2 at a time.
Unheard of. You maxing out your applications.
Okay, dude. Okay, so I was wrong. Mythical summons do have a distinct advantage over normal summons.
Jutsu slots.
All the way at the bottom, yeah. More elements, more specs. So I guess there is a good reason to take space time first now.
And yeah, they also get more G2 slots. That's not bad, but
No, I think it's objectively a good thing. People have a reason to take space time. Actually, I don't even think that's space time first. You just need space time as a spec to have mythical summons. Oh boy.
However, you need vigor to summon these summons.
Yo, true.
And you need chakra to get space time.
Okay.
Or to run general space time stuff.
So summons have an upkeep now. What do you think about that?
Is it paid by the summoner or the summons themselves?
It's paid by the summoner.
It'd be better if it was paid by the summons themselves, but maybe that's just me.
No, because the summons come with a fresh AP pool.
Mm.
Okay. All of you guys out there on NRPG, I want you to go and look up a technique called Mystical Palm. If you are running a mythical summon, have your summon take medical, and have that summon learn mythical palm, excuse me. And Mystical Palm allows it to transfer 50 AP to you every post, so this means that even S ranks will be able to cover their own cost. If you have an A rank summon learning Mystical Palm, you can actually gain some AP back.
Hashtag break the system.
No, don't break the system. It was ironic. Mods don't make S ranks cost 50 actions per post. This is ridiculous. That's a lot. That's way too much. I think these costs are too high.
You could argue that it's a decent cost for getting, as you said previously, a fresh AP pool with a whole bunch of different jutsu.
Yeah, I guess.
A larger range of specialties.
I mean, they're already restricted by summon points, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't like how expensive this is because again, the higher the AP costs, the more weight it places on vigor.
Yep. It keeps coming back to this, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so looking over the changes as a whole, what do you think, just in general? Like, what's your grade on this patch?
I think
Hello? Hello, hello?
stat system 4.5 5 out of 10.
Oh, you cut out for a while there. You said what?
You still hear me?
Yeah, you cut out. You're saying
Oh,
what?
sorry. I can't say that I've actually like converted my character over. So I haven't done a whole lot of thinking about like how this will affect build paths. But it feels rushed. It feels like a solid 5 out of 10 to me. And that might be generous on my part.
Yeah. Okay, so here's how I'm looking at it. After going over it with the mods, right, and sort of ironing out what was true and what wasn't true, I think it's a 4 out of 10. Like it's disappointing. Like there are some good things here, like physical specs are back in peak form. Gates users can go absolutely ham on everyone else now, which is I think is cool. Mythical summons have good stuff to them. There are AP reduction exists now. There are good things here, but I think vigor is like the nail here. It's the it's the pain point for this patch mostly. There are some things I don't like about other stuff, the spec stuff in particular, but I think vigor is the major thing here. If Kenshin delivers on some of the balancing tweaks that he's talked about, then this will be like maybe a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But until then, it's definitely like a 4. I don't like vigor, dude. That's just what it comes down to.
It's not a very fun stat, and I think one of the issues is, and one of the reasons I have a hard time kind of following it, and I know this is something we want to talk about kind of near the end, is I think when you drop a patch, you kind of want to take the community through it. Like you want to take their hand and kind of walk them through why you're making these changes, kind of rationale for why these were made.
Yeah,
and I think in this case, we didn't really get that.
I think we can talk about this now. Actually, like there's staff, like if you go to Discord, right, and you try and talk about this with them, like they'll just be like, "Oh, you're closed-minded, or you don't understand." And of course we don't understand. You haven't made it clear why you're making these changes, like each of them specifically, right? Like for summons, it's very clear why. It's something that everyone knew about. But for a lot of these, there are just a lot of minor tweaks that just sort of don't have a very clear reason behind them.
Mm-hmm. And I think more to your point, I think a very kind of strange thing, me anyway, is that we don't have a thread where questions can be asked and publicly answered about this change.
That's just the Discord. You can ping a mod and ask someone in Discord.
That's the thing, though. Is Discord moves so quickly, and people aren't going to go back and read. If you see like 1,000 Discord messages, are you going to go back and read one of those Discord messages?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you also get you had to go talk to Kenshin to get a better understanding of the patch. Not everyone does that. Not everyone will have the understanding you have of it.
Right.
And that creates like a discrepancy among the player base and makes it very difficult for people to play within the system just because they don't understand the system. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I guess our suggestion here would be to like, if you don't want to do it on site, make a channel in the Discord, like a temporary channel for patch feedback, right?
Absolutely. And I think most importantly, it's important to have a very unified staff messaging on each of your points, each of your changes, because I know I've been reading some of the stuff people have been talking about. People are like, yeah, I don't know why this change was made, or something like to that effect. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll ask someone about that. And this goes back to what you're saying when you say was working with staff. He would always make sure everyone kind of was on the same page. when a new patch dropped, so that
Yeah.
staff could answer questions.
Yeah, like I've talked to some of the trials, and they weren't even aware that some of the stuff was going down when it did, and I think that's very uncoordinated. I don't like it, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like maybe the role of trial has changed over the years since I was staff, but
Yeah, really.
I think that all of them should have like some kind of input, some kind of involvement in the rules, and that the extra input will result in a higher quality product in the end.
Or it doesn't necessarily even have to be input; it just needs to be awareness.
Perhaps, yeah. So, again, if the balance changes are discussed and do come down, this patch will be quite good. It will be most excellent, I would say. But is it enough? Is it enough to be V7?
See, I feel like we're never getting there's no point at which we're like, all right, we've arrived at V7. I think we've literally been talking about V7 for how long on this site? Years, literally years.
True, and I think we need a more of a boomer sort of perspective on this, because were you around for V4 at all, Gary?
I was near the end of V4, yeah.
Okay.
Back in the good old days when
how much of a change would you say was from V4 to V5, if you can remember?
That's ages ago. I know a big thing was like standardization of techniques. Previously, you just like link the wiki page and be like, "Look, I can use this now, guys."
Oh.
And now, like, there was like it basically made everything what you know Naruto RPG to be today. Like, you have systems, you have stats on your jutsu, you have ranges, you have all these things all set up to go. But
yeah,
for me, it was a very big change because it made things more structured. It gave structure to something that wasn't necessarily structured before.
Yeah, like that's a massive change, but only because the site was in a very like sort of protean form at that point. And I joined like toward the like around like 60% of the way, 75% of the way through V5. How did V5 change over the course of the version, right? Like from the start of V5 to close to the end of V5, how much did it change?
Cool. I'd say just what people are willing to take advantage of and how far one could push the envelope. Like, you started out, and you had like some stat boosts, and at the beginning, and then at the end, you have people doing like, yeah, I get ×3 speed, ×3 chakra. And then I have a skill that gives me ×2, that gives me ×6. I'm just killing people all the time with my 8,000 speed sand attack, whatever.
×3 speed must be nice, Gary.
Yeah. Who the heck started that?
But yeah, like, so what you're saying is that it was more of a change in player behavior than in the actual rules themselves.
Yeah, it was. There wasn't much in the way of rules changes. It was more so how staff interpreted said rules and how loose they were with approving certain techniques or encouraging certain metas, I suppose.
Okay, I see. So I think here's how I'm going to posit this. If you take all the changes that happened over V6, because let's face it, V6 had a lot of rule changes and a lot of standardization improvements that were codified in the rules over the course of the version. If you take those into account, this is worthy of V7. But if you take only this patch into account, it is absolutely not. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't think there'll be one patch that you can say is definitively now we're in V7. It's more of a process, and one could, as you've mentioned, one could argue that we've been in V7 for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the change sort of started when they started crunching down on substats, and
yeah.
I don't know.
And quite honestly, it's always been a very, very, very arbitrary marker. It's like, oh, guys, we're in V7 now. What the hell does that mean? Does it matter? The rules, they'll change a bit. They'll change here and there. Calling something V7 is just like a strange marker for us to keep track of, like, what quote-unquote era we're in.
Yeah, I guess it's an arbitrary label. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. I just sort of I don't know why you would start calling it V7 now, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's probably just because we're so used to having. I know it's like ingrained in the site that we have these versions that come out, and
Yeah.
I think it also kind of stirs up a bit of excitement. We're in V7, man. It's a whole new world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think moving on to something more substantial here.
Mm-hmm.
The way this patch was marketed, it would be like there will be more build variety. People who have mid-tier builds will be able to, at the very minimum, compete. I'm not sure if that was what was stated, but that was the impression that was certainly given to us as the player base, and that is absolutely not the case. If anything, Kenshin said that this is not a direct quote here, but I believe this is what he said, that there were now more ways to make top tier builds. I think that's like strictly wrong.
I mean,
A top tier build will have like three specs that scale off of more or less the same stat vigor, right?
yeah.
Like this, I think this sort of just killed build variety. Like back in V6, we're already referring to it like it's an era ago. But
Back in the good old days.
yeah, back in V6. But yeah, like in V6, you could pick, I think, literally any three specs, and as long as you fulfilled certain thresholds for stats, you could be at the very minimum somewhat competitive. Now you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. There's at least one objectively bad build. So I think we've taken a step back here.
I'd honestly have to agree, and it feels bad. Like I'm starting out. I just started a new character, and I'm starting to plan things out. And like, this change just dropped, and now it feels like I've lost a lot of agency on the part of my character and what paths I want to go down if I want to actually be competitive. Like, sure. If you want to meme around with the character, you can build whatever the hell you want. That's awesome. But if you actually want to like have an impact in combat or like do something in character that requires combat, you're gonna want to min max. Like I guess that's always been the case, but
Yeah.
move forward.
I think this is a good last point here, that I've heard a sentiment from someone, again, not naming any names. I've heard a sentiment from somebody that, why can't you, and I've heard this from Viper before, why can't you just, build whatever you want, have fun, don't stress out about it, right? And I think that's a good sentiment if this was a single player game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you guys who are not mega nerds and incels and like basement dwellers out there, forgive me because I'm going to go on a video game tangent here. But it's like comparing like Diablo 3 to World of Warcraft, or Path of Exile to an MMO, right? When you have a game that you play alone, where you have minimal to no interaction with other players, you can build whatever you want and still be competitive because you are the only person there. If the game is well balanced, you can build whatever you like and still win. Take, for example, my favorite game, The Binding of Isaac. You can intentionally pass up the best items or, the most run-defining builds to just sort of have fun because the game is still winnable regardless of what you take, right? But when you have an environment that is both multiplayer and competitive, that ceases to be true because you have stakes now. You have things that are at risk because of your build, right?
Absolutely, and this is something that I think we planned on talking about a long, long time ago. And it's the different types of players who come to the site. The people
Yeah.
who enjoy story and enjoy writing, and then the people who like to just like, oh, let's just stat check people, let's fight, let's be like, hey guys, guess what? I'm the best fighter. I've killed a bajillion S ranks. I've won every fight I've ever been in. I'm the best. Look at me. And the problem is, you'll have people like that who will come into someone who's like, oh, I really just want to focus on my story. I enjoy writing and just kind of here for a fun time. And you run into someone while you're writing your little story who is min-maxing and ready to kill you at any time, your story's over.
Yeah, I
Done.
mean, it's not even that. Maybe you just have something they want, a
Exactly.
bloodline, right?
Yeah.
Or for an EGF player, if you play EGF, you're basically required to kill other people to be competitive.
Yeah.
like you have to take their hearts in order to get the elements. Like the game, is focused around, has always been focused around the sort of combat thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there is one particular player who I'm thinking of here who was he was a nice guy. He was very story focused, and I think we sort of ruined the site for him because I killed him twice over the course of his time on the site, because of IC reasons mostly.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
at first he had a character who was a missing nin who was in the bounds of my village, and on
Mm-hmm.
the second case it was the Kiri invasion of Konoha, and it was a fight. I killed him, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that sort of tarnished his perspective on the site and how veterans played the game. And like again, I'm not sure that's strictly a bad thing, but the truth is that there is that pressure on everyone out there to be the best that you can be with your build. And so I don't think saying that build whatever you want, have fun is something that you can expect from the players in general.
Yeah, well, it's like a prisoner's dilemma, right? It's like you can build your story, but then you're gonna get whacked by this guy who has 150 vigor, and he's just gonna destroy you in a fight. Or you can kind of optimize your own character, and you guys can have maybe an even fight, and your character's story might not end. You can continue on, and it's like if you don't escalate to like a build optimization, you just get left behind.
Yeah. Um. So, yeah, I think people will be skewing a lot more towards vigor now. Like, unless you have a build that needs it at 35, like you have a purely chakra scaling build, which big mistake. Or if you have a physical build, which I mean, those are insanely powerful now, but you still need vigor. Gates is hella expensive, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Full disclaimer: I'm going to be going full chakra just to see how that is.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so I think we have. I don't know how much time you have left, but if you wanna talk about chakra, we can.
Yeah, sure. I got some time. I got about like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, so Kenshin has been tossing around some ideas about how he would tweak chakra up slightly to be on
Mm-hmm.
par with vigor, and I think something that we both agreed on was that it should interact with all of your chakra based jutsu in some way,
Mm-hmm.
and the way he suggested it was that it should decrease hand seals or decrease AP costs. And the way I looked at it was that it should amplify all of your masteries in some way, and ultimately those both sort of equate to the same thing, right?
Yeah. So like in this scenario, we'd have like it's almost like having two different types of chakras, having like a large chakra pool versus a large like chakra potency, I suppose, right? So like chakra potency would be the chakra as to the chakra stat right now,
Right.
and like chakra pool would be the vigor stat as it is right now.
Right, and the way I sort of argued for it was that, with greater potency, the character has to have a greater control over their own power, and that's how this
Mhm.
this mastery amplification would come about. More masteries and more powerful masteries, I think, is the way to go here because it's an aspect of the site that you want to incentivize people to use. I think
Mhm.
nowadays that would be sort of how you get like individual variety. Players pick a tech that they really like and they invest masteries into it, and it becomes theirs. And I think that's what's
Becomes like
important
the
about.
signature technique. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's important about builds in multiplayer games.
Yeah.
It is yours. It's not just some generic template that you copied off of Kenshin or Kozai, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
yours. It is something that you invested in, that you created, and it belongs to you now. And I think that's what makes games like this special. If you can make something unique to you like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that would actually make just a general good contrast of like the types of builds you could have. You could have like, oh, you could have a vigor maxer who's just spamming jutsu, or you could have this chakra maxer who's like they have this one technique, this one like it can shoot you from 500 meters away or something, and it'll go straight through you. You'll explode into a gajillion pieces. and that one technique is just so good, so good. But this other person with the vigor max can just spam out fireballs all day. And I think having that contrast and allowing people to make that decision would bring back agency to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they can do it. I think that Kenshin can pull through on these balance tweaks. He's more capable than most of the previous administrations have been. So I guess as long as he tosses it around with more people within staff, like it's Kenshin and Ayato and Jay as moderators, and then I guess Kutari as a consultant. But I think he should toss it out to the trials as well. Like they're good players. They have good input that can be had here. Even if you don't want the opinions of boomers like us, at least open it up to the rest of your staff. And I think not only will you have a better product in the end, but you'll be able to get it out more efficiently as well.
More efficiently, have more. That's what I'm looking for. Shit, tip of my tongue. More unified messaging across staff, and I honestly think you can have like a shitty ass patch, the worst patch in the world. And as long as you explain your reasoning and allow people to actually give feedback, and that feedback is then actionable by the staff team, they take actions to correct it. I think it can get the shittiest patch ever, but you can make a shitty patch super great if you start listening to feedback from multiple sources.
It's happened. A moderator who I won't name released a patch a while ago, and it became, like we talked about this on the last episode actually, it became the now infamous redacted patch, and while he didn't give the rationale for it, a former moderator came onto a thread and basically flamed everybody who disagreed with the patch, and it was rationale technically, and because of the sort of back and forth that ensued from that, the discussion, they decided to take it back, fix some of the aspects with it, and release a patch that was legitimately like an 8 or 9 out of 10. And it turned out ultimately to be a good time, and I think that we can have a good time with this patch too if the mods play their cards right.
Absolutely. Like, it comes down to the fact that staff won't get a patch right, even if they don't get a patch right the first time, as long as they're willing to change it going forward. That's what makes a good staff member, someone who's willing to take input and iterate on that input to create a better output, and that's what I'm hoping we see here.
Same, dude. All right, well, I guess the phrase of the day is #NerfVigor, or buff everything else, but
buff everything else. Yeah. I think that's about all we got. Anything else we need to discuss?
No, I think we've covered everything. To our audience out there, what few people listen to this. If you have any input, please get back to us. You have our information on Discord. You have the comments in the YouTube video that will inevitably exist. So if we said anything incorrect, or if we messed up something, or if there's something that you think we missed, go ahead and let us know, and we'll get back to you, and we'll see where we can run from there.
Yeah. Also, smash that like button, click the little bell, subscribe. On Instagram and Twitter. It's going to be a great time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gary, for coming back after such a long break.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's fun to kind of get back into it, and I'm looking forward to being hopefully a bit more involved in the site.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that as well.
All right. It's good talking to you, Kozai.
You too. Thanks, man. I'll see you later.
Have a good night.
You too.